Volunteerism has been on the decline across the U.S. for decades now. Many organizations saw a steep drop during the COVID-19 pandemic. The North Country isn't immune to those trends, but it's also full of people spending their time and energy on causes they care about. Our newsroom's newest project, shining a spotlight on the dedicated people who give their time to help others in our communities. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Clarkson University, offering over 95 programs of study with campuses in the Hudson Valley, Central, and Northern New York. More at clarkson.edu.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Friday, May 9th. First up, New York lawmakers approved a $254 billion state budget last night, more than a month after it was due. State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins is a Yonkers Democrat who says the budget places an emphasis on affordability.
In this budget, New York has made a choice to stand with working people and to invest in people.
Senate Republican Leader Rob Ortt sees things differently.
This budget doesn't address the main issue of affordability, even though it was the word on the tips of everybody's lip.
The spending plan includes $50 million to fund vouchers for renters in danger of losing their homes, and it'll send checks of up to $400 to millions of New Yorkers. There could be millions of dollars in massive cuts to some of the North Country's most popular federal programs if President Donald Trump's budget is passed. His spending plan would slash funding for rural airports, heating assistance, healthcare programs, and more. Emily Russell reports.
Trump is calling it his skinny budget. That's because he wants to cut more than 20% of federal funding that's not related to defense spending. Democrats like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are sounding the alarm.
The budget either totally eliminates or cuts to the bone so many of the federal programs upstate New York families rely on most.
Schumer spoke Thursday at a press conference over Zoom.
It's an all-out assault on upstate New York families, a gut punch to our local governments, who lose billions in funding under this plan.
One program that would be eliminated under Trump's budget is the Northern Border Regional Commission. It's handed out nearly $50 million for about 80 projects around the North Country in recent years. Things like a new bridge in St. Lawrence County, a health clinic in Lewis County, and a food hub in Essex County. As Schumer said on Thursday, Trump's budget would also impact every airport in the North Country.
It would also cut 50% of federal essential air service. That would devastate North Country airports and hurt places are smaller airports. Watertown, Ogdensburg, Plattsburgh, Messina, Adirondack regional airports.
Those places have gotten millions of dollars in federal support. Ogdensburg and Messina's airports both recently got more than $2 million each for upgrades. Over the years, Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik has described the essential air service as critical. In a statement on Thursday, a spokesperson for Stefanik said what Schumer was doing was, quote, desperate fear-mongering, and added that Stefanik will, quote, continue to deliver EAS and Northern Border Regional Commission funding to NY21, unquote. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's proposed budget would also eliminate funding for substance abuse programs, as well as for the low-income home energy assistance program. Last year alone, nearly 14,000 people in St. Lawrence County used that program to help pay their heating bills. With reporting help from Amy Feiereisel, I'm Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
We're launching a new NCPR series later this spring and into the summer about volunteerism in the North Country. But before we started, we asked you, our listeners, for story suggestions. Our community engagement reporter, Amy Feiereisel, joined Monica Sandreski and Catherine Wheeler, our co-hosts of our morning news show, Northern Light, to report back on what you said.
Total, we heard from about 80 different people through email, social media, and NCPR's texting club. And I have to say, the overall tone of those responses was of such just gratitude and really joy. And part of why we wanted to kick this series off was as a reminder to our listeners, and, and even ourselves, of all the amazing, often unsung work that people are doing in North Country communities every single day. So we had people writing in about their own volunteer work, about their neighbors' work, about community organizations they admire, and sometimes even musing about, what volunteering has meant to them. I called up Joan Trivellino of Hanawa Falls. She wrote in about how volunteering has given her a real sense of belonging and worth all her life. She's 64, grew up in Ogdensburg, and says volunteering was really part of the fabric of her community growing up.
We just were regular kids who were in Brownies, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. There were 2 drum and bugle corps in Ogdensburg at the time, so there were hundreds of kids who did that. A lot of my friends did candy striping, and you would have an assignment. My assignment was to help elderly people eat their dinner. So when I was a kid, it was just a way of life, and also in my family, it was a way of life.
And she says as she got older, she found places that she was interested in volunteering for wherever she was and got involved.
Never thought of it as doing good. It was just like a way to appreciate things that I loved. So right now, my biggest passion is Higley Flow State Park. And when I'm there, I still don't even think of it as volunteering. I just think of it as helping the park to be the best it can be so that hundreds of people can enjoy it. Does that make sense? I enjoy it. So I want everybody else to enjoy it too. See how awesome this is?
Oh, I really love that perspective. That's something I've heard myself from people I've interviewed, and that give you you get so much from volunteering. Joan mentioned quite a few organizations in those clips. Who else did listeners highlight?
Well, that's sort of why this is really just a kickoff conversation, because there were so many. About 80 people reached out, but they had more like 300 suggestions for stories in total. A lot of love for volunteer emergency services like fire departments and ambulance crews. Quite a few people wrote in to talk about their appreciation for people serving on school boards and library boards, and for stalwart community organizations like Kiwanis and Rotary clubs. I mean, really every sector was covered. Literacy volunteers, food pantries, snowmobile and cross-country ski grooming clubs.
Well, and I think something that we see from our end in the radio universe is how many people volunteer to keep arts and music and other cultural events alive and thriving in the North Country. And that's hard in a big, sparsely populated area.
Absolutely. And we definitely heard a lot of suggestions about that and just appreciation for the work that those people do. Lots of love for arts organizations. I did speak with a volunteer organizer in Saranac Lake, Ben Sitz, who's been working for about 2 years now with some other folks to bring a free electronic music concert into the woods in Saranac Lake. So it's scheduled now for early August, and it's going to be held at Dewey Mountain. Sitz is 27, and it's basically a group of his friends figuring out insurance and working with the town and putting on a bunch of smaller shows to raise money. And their big physical challenge is actually getting this old stage at Dewey Mountain ready for the concert.
We're going to be a quarter of a mile into the woods, so we had to rent a generator. We had to get restroom facilities. There's some low-hanging brush and then some brush on the ground that we're going to need to clear. And the biggest project is going to be getting wood chips onto the ground so that we don't make a mess. Everybody that has kind of come on board to this has done it because they like it, and nobody is making money off of this. It's strictly a labor of love.
And what really struck me, about what Sid said right there was something that I really saw echoed in a lot of the responses, which is that this is really why so many people volunteer in whatever capacity that they do as a labor of love and, for the love of their community.
Well, I think we're all really excited to get into those stories. Amy, what's your plan for rolling them out?
Well, it's so funny because I wanted to call everyone in this spreadsheet for today's story. And then I realized that, they really all need their own space and their own story. So lots to come. I'll be doing some. Other reporters will be doing some. And this will be an ongoing series because there are just so many different stories about volunteerism to tell all over the North Country.
That's our community engagement reporter, Amy Feiereisel, speaking with Monica Sandreski and Catherine Wheeler this morning on Northern Light. We would love for you to join this conversation. It's not too late. Share your volunteerism story ideas with us by texting the word volunteer to 315-978-6277. That's the word volunteer to 315-978-6277. 6277. More news all the time and through the weekend on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Zoe Knight of Potsdam and Mark Corey of Watertown. Have a super weekend. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.